All right. Good afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you are. This is Derek Bruff. I'm the director of the Center for Teaching at Vanderbilt University, also one of the co-instructors for the online course, An Introduction to Evidence-Based Undergraduate STEM Teaching. And I am glad to welcome you to our Week 6 virtual session using Google Hangouts. This week's session is a little bit different. The prior ones featured Q&A with some of our module developers, some of the other instructors and teaching staff for the online side of the course. This week we thought we'd mix it up a little bit and speak with some of the folks who have been, I would say, also teaching the course in a sense. These are the facilitators of our some of the local learning communities associated with this course. So when we set out, I guess a year and a half ago or so, to develop and run this course, one of the pedagogical models that we were really interested in exploring and taking advantage of was a blended learning experience. So having not just a standalone MOOC, as they're known, massively open online course, but partnering with people and institutions to get together local learning communities of folks who are interested in undergraduate STEM teaching, to go through the course together, to meet regularly in person during the running of the course, to learn from each other, and really the vision is that the online pieces, the MOOC itself, would provide a set of resources and experiences and opportunities for local learning communities of graduate students and postdocs and faculty and whomever, and that those local learning communities would then enrich the global learning community created by the MOOC through forums and through things like this. And so I'm very excited to get a chance to kind of try this out. I can say a little bit more later about kind of why we thought this might be a worthwhile model, but I'm much more interested in hearing from the folks who are living it and getting their thoughts. So with that as a bit of an intro to why we're here, let's take some turns here and have our panel introduce themselves. And if each of you could tell us who you are and where you are, not only in terms of what university you're at, but also physically in the world, where are you? Because we have several different time zones represented here. And also, at least briefly, kind of what your role in the in your local learning community is. So if you can, because we've got a little variation here. So we'll start off with introductions, and this will go a little smoother if I call on people, just so we're not talking over each other. So Colleen, would you get us started?
Sure, happy to. So I'm Colleen McLinn. I'm the program director for CERTL at Cornell University, and we're located in Ithaca, New York, not New York City, but way, way upstate in the middle of nowhere. And I've been leading two really casual MOOC club discussions around this course. Basically, we had about 10 or 12 people interested in participating initially, and I wanted to do something very casual, totally, kind of self-selected for people who were interested, so that people who wanted to could be motivated and keep up with it and add a little bit of kind of in-person learning community to help this feel a little more personal.
Sounds great. And did you say MOOC club, Colleen?
I did say MOOC club.
So I have to say, there's one person that I've noted who pronounces MOOC as MOOC, to rhyme with book, which would totally work for your MOOC club.
It would.
Although I don't know anyway. Clay Shirky pronounces it MOOC, to rhyme with book, and not MOOC. I don't know where he gets that. But anyway, bear that in mind. If you want to mispronounce things, it might help your theme.
Yeah.
Kyle, can you say a few words about you?
Yeah, my name's Kyle O'Connell. I'm at the University of Texas at Arlington, and I'm the graduate research assistant for our local On Track program, which is just our local version of CERTL. I'm leading a learning community, or did lead, we just finished, that accompanied the MOOC. We are in Arlington, Texas, which is in the middle of Dallas and Fort Worth, so in the DFW Metroplex. I'm a graduate student in biology.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Marissa?
Yeah, okay. So I am from Hamburg Technical University, which is in Germany. So it's 9 p.m. at our place now. And I'm a member of a learning community which Miriam, who will introduce herself later, initiated. And I don't know if I'm a normal member because I'm not a STEM teacher, but I'm trying to get STEM teachers to use the methods we used in the MOOC. So yeah, that's actually what I'm doing.
So, and I should have added this. So what's your kind of day job? What's your typical role at Hamburg?
Yeah, I'm trying to get people to use those new teaching methods, and actually my role is to get people to use PBL a little more. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years.
Excellent, excellent. Kyle, we heard a little bit about your day job. Colleen, did you say kind of what your day job is?
I'm super lucky because this is my day job, basically. I'm the program director for CERTL at Cornell. So my job consists of working with grad students and postdocs on STEM teaching and research mentoring skills. So I get to do lots of fun things.
Sounds like a blast. Excellent. Miriam, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hi, my name is Miriam Glesmer. I'm in Germany, in Hamburg as well, at Hamburg University of Technology. And I'm facilitating our local MOOC group. And yeah, we are working at the Center for Teaching and Learning, both Marissa and I. And we have about 12 participants, all of which are from our Center of Teaching and Learning. So we are very interested in this because we're looking at the MOOC in from kind of a meta perspective, because we look at how you teach the kind of things that we usually teach to the people we work with. And yeah, it has been really exciting. So I guess my day job is the same as Marissa's, to meet up with professors and staff and talk about what they are doing in their lectures and help them improve it.
Excellent, thank you. And that's kind of my job too. I direct a Center for Teaching here, and we work with faculty and grad students and postdocs and try to help them teach well, either while they're here at Vanderbilt as instructors, or for the PhD students, often they're planning faculty careers elsewhere, and so we try to prepare them as well. Nick, who are you?
I was muted. Sorry, there we go. I'm Nick Gross. I'm at Boston University, so I'm on the East Coast. It's 3 p.m. here. We have a number of what Bennett has decided to call MOOC parties. Woohoo! And so it's scattered around. There's one at the med school. There's 2 classes for graduate students in the physics department and biology department that are using the MOOC, and then there's one in engineering, and then we have 2 other sort of open to everybody. And we've got a smattering of engineering and psych and environmental science participants, and some physics and computer science. So we've got, like, it's really stuff to play with every week in terms of talking about some of the ideas that are being done at the MOOC. And my day job is kind of all over the map, but at BU I do a lot of professional development for high school physics teachers, and then for our learning assistants program that we have. And so I have been using some of these techniques already, and it's a lot of fun to be able to use the material that the CERTL people have put together to lead discussions around these, and how would you approach particular problems or topics. So I'm having a good time leading these discussions and facilitating what all these people are bringing to the table.
That's great. And I'm going to see Daniel. I see you're on. I don't know if you're actually here yet. I don't see a video.
Hi, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Daniel Langenthal from Brandeis University. My colleague Alyssa Stalsberg-Canelli and I are facilitating a MOOC with 9 graduate students in the sciences, mostly biology. What else should we say?
What you do when you're not facilitating a local learning community.
Oh, I'm the Director of Experiential Learning and Teaching at Brandeis. What we do is mostly consult with faculty on how to incorporate experiential learning pedagogy, so active and reflective learning, into the classroom. So we'll sit with them and brainstorm with them on their curriculum and syllabi, give them activities. We do it both formally and informally, both one-on-one and in small groups. We run workshops, how to engage students in classrooms, how to incorporate content-heavy, experiential learning into a content-heavy class, how to use project-based learning. We help students brainstorm projects and create experiential learning projects, presentations. That's fundamentally what we do.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun too.
A lot of what?
It sounds like a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it's an awesome job.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Well, you guys have already said a little bit here and there about kind of, some of you have said who's in your group, but I'm curious to know a little bit more about why you have a group and what you were hoping to accomplish by having a local learning community. And if you could, that may mean saying a little bit more about who your group members are and kind of maybe what they're hoping to get out of it as well. So maybe we'll kind of go to that next in terms of a little bit of background in terms of why have a local learning community? What are you hoping to learn or accomplish through this? And so Nick, you kind of gestured to this a little bit. Why don't I let you get us started with this one?
Sure. So we've got, it's mostly graduate students that are involved in our local learning communities, and they clearly are thinking, some of them are actually teaching right now, but they're clearly thinking about the future and that they may want to teach and at some level, either at a university but a few of them have said, the university isn't for me. I want to, do a small liberal arts college someplace, or and want to see what some of these. I think in some ways the material in the MOOC really resonates with them because they've seen some of the problems in some of the approaches that we've taken. And I like the value of the learning community is it gives them an opportunity to try things out, to explore, but also to ask questions like, let's talk more about Bloom's, what the heck is this Bloom's taxonomy thing, right? What do you mean by analysis and application? What's the difference between those two? And I get to scratch my head and go, yeah, well, let's talk about that. You do the therapist thing. You say, well, what do you think is the difference between those two things? But so it's a real opportunity for us for them to take what they're getting out of the MOOC and not just have to process it by themselves, but then bring it to the discussion. Especially since a lot of these guys are graduate students, their job is to not be graduate students anymore, right? And so they're giving up time they're taking time away from that to do this. So it's nice to have to they don't have to struggle in individually to do this. So.
Sure, sounds good. Kyle, what about at UT Arlington? Why do you guys have a community, and what do you hope to get out of it?
We had a community to appeal to graduate students. So we don't have a whole lot of postdocs that had interest, but graduate students definitely have interest. Our group stayed pretty small though, so I led it, and then I consistently had 2 people. And when I had 2 other people, as the semester went on, they watched more of the MOOC. At the beginning, it was kind of slow. People weren't really buying in. But when they did watch the videos, we had really productive discussions. And then what I started doing is each Monday when the MOOC came out, I would watch the whole thing, and then I would really recommend a few of the highlight videos that I thought were most important. And I got a lot of feedback from other students that they liked that, and they planned on going back and watching it later. So I think that our program's kind of starting out here. It's a little bit newer, and it took a while to start getting buy-in, but the people that did start to invest really enjoyed it, and our main goal was just to kind of get people to at least watch the videos, or at least start watching some of the videos, and then try and implement that into their classrooms while they're teaching this semester. So it was really productive for us, but I think that in the future, I think as we get more buy-in, it'll definitely take off more.
Good, good. And we'll probably circle back to, I mean, we're already raising a couple of things that I want to follow up on, but in terms of selecting materials for your learning community out of the abundance of materials we have in the MOOC, as well as I'm curious, you know, some of your participants probably are teaching right now, and so I think that may be a different experience. Miriam, what about in Hamburg? Why do you have a learning community, and what do you hope to get out of it?
So initially, I actually started the learning community because, can you hear me? Okay. I initially started the learning community because I'm a big believer in accountability buddies, and I really wanted to participate in the MOOC. So I thought if I say I'm going to facilitate a meeting once a week, then I actually have to watch everything and kind of deal with it myself. And then, yeah, all my awesome colleagues were interested in joining as well. So a big goal for me is that we we are 20 people working at my Center for Teaching and Learning. So a big goal was to actually find our community in a way, and because we go into all these consultations and we all do what we think is best, but I thought it was very important that we kind of found together as a group and are on the same wavelength in a way of the kind of things we advise people to do. So yeah, and it's working out really well. So I think 2 weeks ago I started sending out recommendations, similar to what Kyle is doing, of what to watch, and then I think that helped a lot because it's a lot of material, and we are all kind of in our jobs and not paid to actually watch the MOOC, so it really helped focus the discussion when everybody watched the same things, and it has been really productive. And we found that now in other group meetings we kind of refer to what we learned in the MOOC and say, as we saw in this video, we should be doing this in this and that way. And yeah, it has been really great. So it's definitely not only for people who are kind of getting into teaching, it's also for people who are trying to teach teachers how to teach.
I like it. I like it. No, I can see doing something similar with my staff too, here at my teaching center. Daniel, what about your group?
So my group I was actually cajoled, maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, into this. A faculty member heard about this, got these students involved, and then was like, hey, can you join me in the process and help out, like co-facilitate? And I was like, sure. And then all of a sudden he was like, I can't do it. Why don't you do it? And so, so I ended up taking over and bringing in my assistant director, Alyssa, who's excellent. The students are hungry to learn. They realize when we ask them, have any of you had any pedagogy training in the back before? And they all say no. Like none of them have ever learned how to teach before in their lives. So it's like anything is new to them, anything is interesting to them. It all connects to them in some way or another. What we have found, and I'm working on another project with another faculty member in the sciences and physics, we just got a huge grant to do interdisciplinary learning. We're working with 6 graduate students there, and they also have no pedagogy background. So we're looking at saying, okay, what are the best pieces of this MOOC, like, and thinking about maybe continuing, like, creating workshops, longer-term workshops for graduate students, which we've thought about, but it seems like more clearly necessary at this point. The MOOC itself, it was a lot of work. And we did the same thing as well, where we just chose some of the things that were best, we liked the best or easiest to watch or whatever it may be, and adopted and took those pieces, because an hour is a very short period of time. So like, let's just focus on 1, 2, or 3 pieces that are condensed and I don't know, chewable is the right word, like that we can really get into the meat of it a little bit and walk away with some clear things that'll help us going forward. So it took us, I mean, the amount of time, I don't think I really understood how much time it was going to take. You know, to do 4 hours plus of work for 1 hour of a workshop is challenging. And I think all of our graduate students found that challenging. And we had 3 people drop out. in the process because it felt like too much. But once we figured out, like, let's just pick and choose, it's made it easier, much easier for them, for sure. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks. And Colleen, what about your group?
Yeah, so our group, as I mentioned, there's about 10 or 12 people who expressed interest, and I think some of them are participating in the MOOC without coming to the club. Similarly to Kyle, we've had about 4 regular attendees plus me, and so we've had relatively small discussions. It's actually been good in that everyone gets a chance to talk, and we can all really participate. Our attendees, I think, run the gamut of kind of stages and teaching experience. I know we have at least one person who's a first-year PhD student after just doing a master's. We have one postdoc who's pretty close to going out on the job market, actually is at an interview this week, and some kind of mid-stage graduate students with a little bit more experience in training and teaching, participating in the MOOC but not coming to the club so far. We also have a Cornell faculty member and an instructor from a nearby community college too. And I think that one of the things they're telling me they're finding really useful is that they might have known a bit about some of these techniques or tried some of them, but they're able to go back and kind of fill in some of the gaps in their theory and feel like they know why they were doing some things or the terminology behind it. They also, I think, are finding it useful. Certainly the postdoc who's on the job market is finding it really useful for her written statements and interviewing and everything to be able to say, well, I had this technique that I like and based on kind of instinct, but now I know that there's research and there's a name for it and there's best practices for doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I'll follow up on that. I am kind of curious as to what value you see in having the local learning community for your participants. This is a little hard to compare and contrast because I'm curious, particularly value you see happening in the local learning community, in the face-to-face gatherings that might not be a part of the MOOC-only experience. So I'm wondering kind of what dynamics you see at play in terms of benefits to the participants for being in that local learning community. And maybe I'll start with you, Marissa. What benefits would you see? What value do you see in the local learning community interactions?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of like Miriam. If I didn't have that community, I wouldn't be able to watch all those videos. But as I know, we are meeting on Thursdays, and the latest on Wednesday, I think like, oh my God, I have to watch a lot of videos to take part, and I really want to watch them to be able to discuss what I've seen. So we're always a week behind because we thought we need the weekend to watch everything. And having the community really helped me, like, making sense out of the videos for our work and to see which things to use or not to use, and to be able to talk about like fields of our work that I'm not that familiar with. So, and having examples really helped me a lot. So it is, as I'm not a STEM person, so I studied sign language, so I'm really from a different background, and it helped me a lot to see other people who are really teaching STEM to how they used it. So here in Germany, professors are a little bit different, I think, still, but it helps to see other examples and to discuss them and to see how to apply them here in a different system.
All right. No, I like that, and particularly you have a different system there, right? There are certain similarities, but also differences that I think that's a nice topic for exploration in the local learning communities. It's kind of customization. Others, what would you point to as things that seem to be happening in your local learning communities that are bringing value to your participants?
I think for me, it's I'm not a STEM teacher. My background is consulting and training, so I'm like really not. It would be helpful to have a science teacher in the group, but as a co-facilitator. But that said, I think it's this sense of belonging, sense of validating their experience, sense of, you know, they're like, wow, I'm not alone in this. These are challenges I face, and wow, there's other students who are facing the exact same challenges. Like, one thing that's funny is when we asked them why they want to be teachers, what motivates them, they all said that in their first few years they were they loved science, but it was so mind-numbingly difficult and brain freezing because it was like, I'm studying all this old stuff. And only later did they have the aha moment, whoa, this is amazing, I understand this, why this is important. They want to do the same for their students and give them that experience like the very first time, from first year, sophomore year, that kind of thing, freshman year, sophomore year. So it was great to have them all share that desire and have that same sort of life experience that they all went through. They all had the same thing happen to them almost, and they all want the same thing to be different for their students.
That's great. That's great. No, and I know that when we
This is Nick.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Nick. Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we've been able to do, or I feel like we've been able to do, is actually model the practices in the learning community. So, for example, when we're writing to learn, I had them write a minute paper and write a muddiest point and a clearest point. On Monday during our meeting, at one point in time when we were about to finish up, I looked at the list of the motivations that we had on the board, and I looked at what we did, and I went, oh look, and went through it point by point and said, look, this hit all the motivation. Actually, I didn't do it; they did it for me. They started pointing out that we've hit all the motivations in the activity that we were running in terms of rewriting. We were rewriting or reworking activities that they thought weren't particularly motivating. So it was a kind of teaching these courses can be very meta.
No, I believe that. And I will say one of the challenges that we've had on the course design side is to try to do as much modeling as we can in a MOOC environment, which isn't particularly friendly to certain types of learning activities. And so I like the idea that some of that modeling is happening at the local groups. Other thoughts on this question of kind of what value you see to the local learning community?
So this is Miriam. And one thing that I find really helpful is to be a student again, because I noticed, for example, when I was doing the multiple choice tests, I didn't read the question and think about how would I answer it. I looked at the answers and then looked at whether I could see the keywords I needed. And it's a very useful reminder to be in the role again and not always to think, yeah, the students should really be learning in this way and they should know how to study. But yeah, I mean, as soon as I'm a student again, I'm falling back into all these old habits, and that was very valuable for me to see.
Excellent. I'm going to segue to Rick's question over here in the Q&A, because I'm curious about this. I was going to ask you anyway to talk a little bit more concretely, how are you spending your time in your meetings? And so a few of you have gestured to different ways that you spend that already, but I am curious, how are you spending your time in the meetings? Kind of what activities or discussions are there things that seem to be a really good use of that time? And if so, was any of that shaped by the ideas for activities that we shared with you through our facilitators guide that we put together?
I can start. Ours was a really informal discussion, and I was kind of catching people up on videos a lot because they hadn't always watched them. But so it ended up being pretty informal. We didn't really use the direct the facilitator guide I used as an outline, but we didn't use the activities, but we did use those as discussion points.
So fairly informal, unstructured discussion, but kind of hitting the same points that...
Yes, so I used that as an outline of the discussion.
Sure. Others?
I feel like my experience is really similar to Kyle's. We have also been talking very informally. I've certainly looked at the facilitator guide and had thought about which questions out of it were most important to me to address, and really appreciate having the learning objectives and kind of a summary of the videos and everything. As it turns out, until this week, everyone came pretty underprepared or behind. This week, we discussed today week 4 of the MOOC, and that seemed to hit the right spot. People came actually prepared, and we were able to have a more kind of focused discussion about the modules and the content. Prior to that, sometimes I felt like I was kind of pointing out things in the videos that I thought were worth paying attention to that they may not have watched yet. Another thing which was valuable but I wasn't expecting was just getting random people's kind of questions or experiences and stories out on the table, which might have been like a very loose association to something in the MOOC that week, but it made them think of a situation and they wanted to talk about it and hear other perspectives. And that's been really valuable, I think, hearing from people across different STEM disciplines and with different backgrounds, but we haven't stuck very closely to the facilitator's guide in our small group.
Daniel, maybe I'll ask you to weigh in on this, and I'll piggyback another question, because I think you said you've got all students from the biological sciences.
7 of the 9. We have one math and one neuroscience.
Because I am kind of wondering about I mean, many of the groups represent multiple disciplines, but yours is a little more focused in one domain. I'm wondering if you see that play out in your group interactions in any way.
Not exactly. I can imagine it's slightly limiting. The math person has a very different sort of take on life as a math person.
Hold on, Daniel. We're losing.
Sorry, the math person seems to be slightly. They just have a different take on things. Like they're like, it's a different. You don't go to undergrad and be a math major. I don't know. My sense is I had math major friends in college. They're a very unique subset of people. The bio people, a lot of students are going towards like pre-med. So it's like people who do it because they love it and people who do it because they have a trajectory in some direction that they want to do. So I think that's part of what they struggle with. I know they talk about in labs, like students really do not, they walk into a lab, they study bio and they have no idea what they're doing in a lab. So some of the shared experiences, when 7 of the 9 have shared experiences, it can lean in that direction. Luckily, the math person is much more open, and the neuropsych person also is, neuropsych is also more specific to being open to talk about things and share things, and the bio is definitely. It'd been interesting to have more people, but I think the whole thing was started by a biology professor who recruited people. So that was the direction we went with that.
Miriam, I'm curious. Do your meetings tend to be more informal in nature in terms of kind of general discussion, or a little more structured, like some of the ones that Nick was describing?
So I'm kind of trying to structure them a little bit. So we usually do 1 or 2 of the exercises that you hand out, which is. So we talked about it in the beginning, and we thought it would be very, very good for us to actually do the exercises the way they are intended to do, because it gives us. Because we are always looking from this different level on it, on the whole thing, it would be really good to actually do the MOOC in a student kind of way. But we start out structured, and then we go into the meta level, and then we kind of tend to oscillate back and forth. And I always try to keep it on track in a way. But on the other hand, once we have a good discussion going, it's also worth having this discussion. So what we notice is that an hour per week is really not enough for us, but it's the only thing that is feasible right now.
And Nick, maybe we'll circle back to you. I get the impression you have had some pretty structured activities. Have you used some from the facilitator's guide that have worked, or have you adapted them in different ways?
Well, yeah. So I've used the facilitator's guide as a guide. in that oh, that's a good idea. I'll work that in someplace along the line, or well, and certainly the concept maps we just had at it. I love concept maps. But I did it as an expert jigsaw group, so that we broke the concepts, the topics down into different pieces, and I had different expert groups work on that. But at the same time, there have been times when we just sat around and chatted about things, and it. I won't say it devolved, but I didn't come in with something I wanted to do, and things like the minute paper so we have a large enough group that I can break them up into a couple of different groups and have them do a small group discussion and then do larger group discussions. I should say we often have a large enough group to be able to do that. But not always. So we can do a little bit more. We can do a little bit more structured stuff, and it also requires a little bit more structured stuff because you can't control the conversation, or you can't structure the conversation. So.
Thanks. No, I see that. I think when you have three people sitting around a table, you can't do think, pair, share, right? I mean, you have to just kind of jump in and chat.
Right.
But if you've got 20, then yeah, you kind of do have to think a little more intentionally about how to make that a good use of time. I'm going to circle back to Robin's question, because in a little bit I want to ask you a little bit more about kind of what suggestions you have for improving what we've set up here in terms of the MOOC plus learning community. But I'd like to touch on Leanne's question here about timing. And it was, Colleen, you mentioned your group was catching up, and Marissa and Miriam, you guys talked about having the weekend, so you're kind of a week behind. I'm wondering if any of you have more thoughts on timing, frequency, meetings, how your meetings relate to the release of material in the MOOCs. Any thoughts on that and how you've handled that part of the local learning communities?
This is Nick. We saw in the beginning that people would need a weekend to look at stuff, so we are a week behind. We're still good. We're going to talk about the week 6 materials next Monday and Tuesday, and also there were enough of us doing facilitation that we were able to bounce ideas off of each other and realize early on that there's too much material, and so we put out a recommended viewing list for our group, along with some thought questions that we tried to piggyback on any of the assignments that were in the MOOC, so that if there was something that they had to do for the MOOC, we reminded them, we'll do this for our discussion on next week. So yeah, so that's our timing and our work.
Other thoughts on the timing and frequency and all that?
I had a thought about that. So our goal was to meet 4 times total over the course of the MOOC. I'm actually doing it 8 times because I'm offering 2 time slots a week where we have more or less the same discussion depending on what people want to talk about. The first week we didn't meet, so we started with week 1, a week behind, and as I mentioned, we're only up at week 4 right now. I think in retrospect, I would have liked to have a meeting, kind of an initial meeting, either in the first week, but not assuming people had really looked at the material, or even before it started, to kind of get to know people's goals for the course and their backgrounds a little. Only one of the people had I met before and did I know from other activities, and none of the people have known each other. So I think a lot of the first couple of meetings was just learning more about each other's kind of teaching and research experiences and career goals and things like that. and we maybe didn't get up to speed as quickly as we could have with the content community. So, yeah, I know that at Pittsburgh, for example, they plan to have a meeting before the MOOC content was even released, and in retrospect, that might have been a good idea. We do also only meet for an hour block, which it's hard to get a lot done in an hour, but I think it's a good time slot for busy people.
Yeah. I'm keenly aware of that as I watch the clock in this hour. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about. So maybe on that note, I'll move on a little bit. I'm also really curious to know. We actually did a study here at Vanderbilt a couple of years ago. There was a computer science professor who was doing something similar. He was teaching an on-campus course here, face-to-face students. He used someone else's MOOC as kind of the outside of class work for his on-campus course, something like a textbook plus situation. And one of the things that we found in talking to his students, these were all grad students in computer science mostly, they rarely participated in the forums online in any way, more largely because they saw they had this kind of local group that they could ask questions of and connect with. And so I'm wondering, do you think that having this local group has perhaps changed how your folks have participated in the online piece of it? Do they kind of see themselves as part of this larger community, or do they really just have their local learning community and that's kind of sufficient in what they want? Any thoughts on that question?
I would think that it would encourage people, having a local community would encourage them to participate more online. From my viewpoint, at least for me personally, the more you interact with the information and the content, and you're talking about it with other people and processing, then you're more excited about it and you want to engage in the larger online community. Whereas if you're just taking the MOOC and you have no one else taking it with you and no accountability and no local community, then I'm personally a lot less inclined to, no one cares whether I give input online or not. But if I already have people in my own university, then it's like I'm part of something and I want to engage.
I find that very interesting because for me it works actually exactly opposite. Because I have my local group, so I'm happy to talk with them, and then going online would be an additional step that I don't feel is as necessary as if I was alone. So in the beginning, because we started a week late, in the first week I was very active and I read everything and I commented because I felt like this is the place where I can actually discuss things. And then once we had our group going, I felt like, yeah, now I've talked about it and I brought up all the points that were really important to me, and now I don't need the online community anymore, not in the same way anyway. So I find it very interesting to hear you say that it works the other way around for you.
Right.
One of the things that I, in retrospect, would have liked to have promoted more that we did a few times was somebody recapped or we were able to capture some of the work we did in the learning community and post it online. And so that, and it was my intention to try and do that more often. And I know that at least once, and I think twice, one of the participants actually did it for us. And so that might be something that in the future, basically I say, okay, who wants to post this? And get somebody to post it.
Maybe even have a rotating, note-taker position of sorts who would take on that responsibility.
Yep.
I have to say, from my perspective, it was fascinating to see your posts, and Jeff at University of Alabama, I think, did a lot of this too. Kind of seeing what was happening at these local learning communities was certainly interesting for me. I hope it was actually helpful for others who are engaged in the global community. Let's Mike Reese has posted a question that I think is a really interesting one. I'm gonna select that one right now. What did you try to do to motivate participants to attend? Food, drink, certificates, cash money? I don't know. What did this look like for you guys? Nick, you want to go first?
Bennett had pizza delivered. So
pizza always helps.
I don't know that actually motivated anybody, but certainly the people who were attending were grateful, especially since we were running at like 4 to 5 and 5 to 6. So we were running in that dinner hour. So it was so that was good. Anyway, other than just standard communication, that was it.
Okay. Other thoughts on the motivational part of this? What do you think motivated your people to come and participate?
I know for mine, we do have food as well. One of them is 9 to 10 a.m., so we have like coffee and cinnamon rolls or something. And the other one is lunchtime, so then we have like sandwiches and drinks. I also tried to space out the 2 meetings in different areas of campus because we have a pretty sprawling campus around different quads. So one is on the engineering quad and one is on the agriculture quad. And I tried to pick fairly central locations for people. I did do a doodle poll to pick the times. There were maybe like 4 or 5 time slots, and we narrowed in on the most popular 2. But yeah, so I think some of the people said the time is convenient or the location is convenient, and I'm sure the food doesn't hurt. But that's really our only motivator.
And I don't think, unless this may be true in your case, Nick, but I don't think any of your participants were getting any kind of certificate or course credit for this. Is that right? Okay. I know we have a couple of groups that do have that quality, that they're kind of embedded in a course of some sort. And that does change things a little bit, I think. Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to, let's see, kind of throw out the last question that I have, which is, what should we do differently next time? You've talked a little bit about some things that you might tweak, but I'm just wondering, as you kind of look at this course and the things that we've set up, what would you recommend we do differently, or are there other recommendations you would make for kind of future facilitators, people in your roles, to help the whole process be more valuable?
Are you just speaking about the learning communities or the entire MOOC?
I think there's a lot we could do differently in the MOOC. I think probably the kind of the interface between the two, or just the learning communities. Because one of the goals for the MOOC was to provide people like you with resources and opportunities that would be helpful for your local learning communities. And so I guess that's what I'm asking is are there kind of things we could have done differently that would have been more helpful to you as you thought about leading your local learning communities?
I think, I mean, one major thing was just having a much longer lead up, like having the material like a month in advance to know, to go over it and to see and then give you feedback and say like, this is really impossible, we can't go through all this material in this amount of time, and these are great exercises, can we tweak them, or just a longer time to think about it and what it's going to be like and to know what it's going to be before we just jump in. I felt like I was jumping into the deep end with them. So, yeah. But the exercises were really good. There's a lot of really good, I mean, we used some of them and there was a lot of good things to take from the exercises for sure.
One of the things that would have been helpful for me is if there were, particularly when there were a number of main points. So, for example, the 4 points of student motivation that were summarized. If those could have been summarized in the facilitator's guide, as opposed to me like going back and forth in the video. And saying, wait, I didn't catch that, or wait, I missed one someplace along the line, and having to make those notes, that would have been helpful.
Okay, so not just a 1 or 2 sentence description of the video, but perhaps some key takeaways from some of the content.
Yeah. So certainly key points or key ideas, especially if it's a list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would have been very helpful as opposed to having to recreate it. And as Daniel was just saying, you're recreating it like the Monday of.
Yeah.
So having that in advance would be helpful also.
Okay. And to Daniel's earlier point, I would say that it's not the case that we had lots of good stuff that we were keeping hidden from you guys for a time. It was, hey, it's finished. Now let's push it out to our facilitators, and so we were running pretty tight on our schedule, unfortunately. One thing we have to look forward to is in future offerings we have a facilitators guide. We can work on making it better. We have all the video content and everything out there, and so we can start to kind of add in all of this and provide it to our facilitators a lot earlier than we did this time. So I do understand, especially given how much content there was in the MOOC, to be able to know in advance, here's what's coming, and then to kind of figure out how you're going to time out and schedule your meetings in response to that makes a lot of sense. So what else do we need to hear from you guys? Either more feedback for us or other comments or points that you wanted to make today in terms of the experience in your local learning communities?
So I think there's one thing that would really help, and that is if we knew in advance how long the forum stuff would stay accessible to all of us, because I just said that we don't participate as much in the online discussions, but our local learning community still has a Google Doc where we put down our main takeaway messages, and so we actually kind of created our own online community because we know that we're going to have access to that even after the course ends. So I think, and I don't know how that is on the Coursera platform, but I think usually it doesn't stay there forever. So in a way, what I like about our own thing is that we document what we are thinking about for ourselves, and yeah, it would be nice to know whether that is available in the Coursera platform or whether there's some other way to actually keep what we were thinking about for a longer period, or whether there's a way to get a backup of it afterwards, or to not just write things in the online forum and then have them be gone right after the course ends.
Yeah, so the answer, as far as I know, I believe the forums and the course, if you're enrolled in the course as of November 23rd, the last day of the course, I believe you will have access to the materials and the forums for a long time. I don't know exactly how long, but the plan is indefinitely. I need to confirm that with our Coursera team to kind of make sure that's possible technically, but I understand that it is. And so the intent is that you would have access to that. Now, if you have great notes from your group, it's fine to share them on Coursera. Do you want to use Coursera as your storage device? Probably not, right? You probably want to have a little more control over that kind of material that you've created. But if you wanted to come back into the forums and have discussions a month from now, I believe they will be there ready for you. Other comments from our panel? What else is
to ask, have you guys thought about breaking the information up a little bit more and 10 weeks instead of 6 weeks? Especially, the last week isn't real content heavy, and it just felt, if people are cutting a lot of things out and a lot of us are sending out highlight videos and a lot of the content's just really getting wasted or falling through the cracks. So that was the only suggestion I had.
Yes, so we had a really fun conversation among the course team at the CERTL Network meeting in Ames, Iowa a few weeks ago. It was, week 2 or something, I think, when we met. And so the week 2 material had launched, and we realized, one, that there's probably, we rated the course as 8 to 10 hours per week of time on task. And we have hit that, and perhaps more so in some weeks. And so there's a lot there. What we realize is that we can probably space it out a lot more. And so we're still kind of figuring out exactly what this is going to look like, but probably in the future we will have what is now one course broken into 2 courses, probably each of them about 7 weeks long, with more like 1 module per week. Our modules vary in size too, but maybe 2 shorter modules in a given week. And so the plan is to build out a few more modules over the next year, but to use that to kind of reconfigure this into a part 1 and part 2 that makes sense. And so I think if we have a 7-week MOOC where you have, 3, 4, 5 hours of time on task, right, to do everything in that week, I think that'll be a lot more manageable for people, whether or not they're part of a local learning community. So that's our goal, is to kind of figure out how we can do that, so that the week-to-week would be a little bit more manageable. Does that sound practical to the panel?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I like having a fewer number of topics, basically, because basically we had to pick a topic for discussion. Otherwise, it would have been like, okay, now we got to go on to this, and
yeah,
wouldn't have worked. So.
Yeah, and have a 1-hour discussion on inquiry-based labs, writing to learn, and problem-based. Like, you can't do 3 topics in an hour, right? You can maybe do one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that'll be the model going forward. It's 1 module per week in most cases. And like the module in week 1, right? That's probably 2 weeks worth of modules there, right? So to kind of stretch it out and make it more manageable as we go. All right. Well, we are at 3 o'clock. Any final thoughts from the panel?
Well, there's one thing I think.
Nice job.
Oh, I'll take that, Miriam.
Yeah, nice job from you as well. One thing that you might like to hear is that for our group, at least, we decided to keep the meetings going even after the MOOC runs out. So we're gonna just find a clip on YouTube or just continue going on, because we found it so helpful to all of us. So yeah, I really wouldn't worry about making the MOOC longer. And we really liked, now we have established the time and the place, and it's just running smoothly, so there's really no reason for us to stop. And I think that might be the same for a lot of these communities, that people actually appreciate having the community, having the opportunity to talk about all these issues. And yeah, thank you very much. I've been enjoying it a lot.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I love that. I love the idea of these communities extending past November 23rd, right? Because they've found a reason to keep meeting and to keep learning with each other. I think that's great. All right. Well, thank you all for spending your hour with us and for having a good conversation. I've enjoyed learning more about kind of what's been happening in your parts of the world, and I hope that you've enjoyed hearing from each other as well. Yeah, so thanks again, and I'm sure we'll see you around in the forums if nowhere else. So, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.